All right, so now let's look at this example that's very, very similar to that, but just has more detail and uses a few different terminologies. Okay, but it's doing the same basic thing here. Okay, so this is the page that the user actually wants to get to. Okay, in this case, they just called it index, the home page. And notice that it's checking to see, it's only going to show you the home page information if it doesn't hit this first. So this is the check to see if the person is actually logged in over here. So it says, in this case, they do it slightly different, but it's a similar concept to what I did. They say if the session username is not set. So if not is set, session username, then it's going to actually redirect. This header function here is the function in PHP that redirects something to another page. So header location login.php will run, and that basically sends the person to this other page. It's a redirect, and die means stop running this script. Okay, so just redirect the person over here and stop doing anything over here. So again, the whole point of that is if this username session is not set, then it's going to redirect back to the login page, and it won't let you go on down to the rest of the page, whatever would come down here, that you will only get to see if you're logged in, if this session variable has been set. So very, very similar to what I did on the other page where I set that session variable. This is setting a session variable called username, and here is where that is actually getting set. So this is where you can see in the code it's checking to see if the username and password are correct. In this case, it's checking for a very specific username and password that are hard-coded right in here. Obviously, in most cases, you'd want to do this using a database. But if the person got the username and password correct, then we set this session variable called username. In this case, they're setting it to whatever the person's username is, B. Smith in this case. But the key here is that they're setting that session variable right there. And that's the thing that's going to say somebody has logged in. That's the thing that we're going to use to check later and see, has somebody logged in? Is this session variable called username set? And again, that's what we're checking right over here. So in all of our other pages that they want to get to now, we can check this. We can say, is that session variable username set? And if it is, that means they've logged in, because they only would have got set if it was set right here, based upon the fact that they had correctly entered the correct username and password. And keep in mind, this session array, okay, is being stored on the server. Okay, the session information is stored on the server. So there's no way that somebody could, through their browser, set any variables into that. Okay, so that code is only going to run, in this particular case, on the server if somebody's actually logged in correctly. So there's no way for somebody to just put a session username in there who's running, some person remotely on their own browser. Okay, this is something that has to be done on the server side, and it's only going to be done if that line of code runs right there. So it's a safe way to do this. So let's just kind of look now through, let's walk through the actual visualization of this that they provided. And I think with some of this background, hopefully this makes a little more sense. And if you get this, that's great, because this is kind of an important concept to understand how you manage complex things like this, like making sure that only authenticated users can get to pages that we own, that have important information on it that we want to protect. Okay, so let's try going through this now and see if this makes sense. All right, so person just goes to this login page, login.php. Okay, so they're going to go here, right? And by typing it into the URL, that means it's coming in via a GET request. Okay, so we check to see, is it a POST request? It's not. In other words, they're coming here for the very first time, so we're not going to do any of this stuff to verify if the username and password are there, because of course they haven't even entered any username and password, right? So it's not a POST request, so we skip all this and jump down and just display the form. So the form will appear in the user's browser right here, right? So now we go on, let's say the user enters in B. Smith and wrong pass and clicks login, right? So what's going to happen? They entered that in, they click login, so the form is going to submit to login.php. In other words, it's going to send the data, that data that was just entered in, right back up to the top of this page. So this script runs. Okay, and it says, yes, it is coming in a POST request. So I'm going to run all this. And notice what happened. It received the username and password that were sent using these post arrays. The username was bsmith and the password was wrong pass, right? Those get stored in these two variables. And now it says, are those correct? Is username equal to bsmith? Yes, that is. Is password equal to open sesame? Nope, it's not. Password was wrong pass, so it's not correct. And again, just to repeat, this is hard coded in here as the specific username and password that are correct. In real web applications, you're going to go query a database in most cases to see if they entered in a valid username and password. But you get the idea, hopefully. So that wasn't correct. So none of this code ran. Instead, we came down to the else, and we just printed out incorrect username or password, and now we're going to print out the rest of the form, right? So it echoed this into the actual HTML and would show the rest of the HTML. So you see it says incorrect username or password and re-displays the form. So now somebody enters in bsmith and open sesame and clicks login. And once again, all that information is going to be sent back to this page so that this script can run again. And you can see that now this time it's going to be correct. So it says, yes, this is a post request. It checks the username and password, bsmith and open sesame, or it gets those. It says, are they correct? And now, here's the important part. Okay, this I'm going a little bit fast here, but it says that those are correct. And so it set this session variable, okay, called username with a value, the key of username, and a value of whatever the username was, which in this case was bsmith. So it set this session down here. So you can imagine a little database stored on the server side. It's not stored on the client, it's stored on the server that just contains this information. Okay. So the username, it was set to bsmith. So now that variable is set. Okay. It also ran this little code right here, which this header function means redirect to another page. So we're currently on login.php, but we're done processing the login information. So we really want to send the user now to the actual index page they were trying to get to. Okay, so that's what this is going to do. It's going to redirect them now, and you can see that it's basically putting into the browser the new page we want to go to. Hasn't displayed it yet. Now we'll actually see. Here's the index.php that we're trying to go to, and it checked to see, is the session username actually set? And it is. So it's going to come down here, and now it's just printing out something on the page. In this case, it says just welcome bsmith. Obviously, this whatever this website would do would now do whatever it else it needed to do. There'd be more code down here to show you whatever it wanted to show you. But that's the idea, okay? It checked to see, since we have this session down here, it checked to see if this username was set, and it was, so it allowed you to get into the page, okay? If it wasn't, if this wouldn't have been here, and somebody tried to access this page, it would have said, is set session username? I said, nope, it's not. So it would run this code right here, and it would actually just redirect the user back here and wouldn't let them see the rest of this information on the page. So hopefully that makes sense. And it's a little bit of a complicated process, but it's a very good example of what sessions can be used for, a very obviously important aspect of any commercial website.